Convenient, that's what he said about me. I met Fabian in the frozen food aisle at Trader Joe's right as the store manager was ripping him apart in front of half the store. Something about a parking violation. The guy was red-faced, shouting like it was a federal offense. Fabian just stood there looking embarrassed as hell. I don't even know why I stepped in, but I did. Said something about how the parking signs were confusing, and maybe the manager could cool it. The guy backed off. Fabian looked like I just saved his life. At checkout, he asked if he could buy me coffee as a thank you. I said sure. He had that kind of charm that wraps around you slowly. Tall, handsome, in a crooked smile way. And he always remembered stuff, like my favorite tea, or the name of my high school dog. He texted me good morning every single day. By our third date, I was half in love. 8 months in, he moved in. His old place was falling apart, and mine was bigger. My parents had helped me get the apartment after college, and they even pitched in on some of my bills while I figured out my job stuff. I felt a little guilty, but they were glad to help. My mom liked Fabian instantly. My dad was more skeptical, but after a few months and a golf game, he was on board. For him, that was the ultimate sign of approval. Things seemed good, solid, until Fabian's parents started popping in more. They lived about an hour away, but suddenly made it a point to visit for brunch or dinner. His mom, Lydia, always complimented my food and my warm apartment. His dad, Arthur, mostly nodded and smiled. But the whole thing always felt like a performance, like they were playing some cozy family sitcom that I hadn't auditioned for. Once, Lydia teared up looking around my place and said, "It's been so long since we felt like a family." Arthur chimed in with, "You're golden, Fabian. Don't let this go." I remember smiling politely, but something felt off, too rehearsed. Then came the weird comments. Fabian would joke about how lucky I was to have my dad's help, or he'd make these offhand remarks about how I was a good investment, always with a smile, always just vague enough to brush off. He'd text his parents when we got something new, like a blender or a rug. It was weird. He never seemed to be job hunting, even though he said he had big dreams. And anytime my dad talked about business or money, Fabian would suddenly perk up like a meerkat. One time we were scrolling through Instagram and a photo of his ex popped up. He mumbled, "She had the looks but no stability." I asked what that meant. He kissed my forehead and said I was the full package. I didn't know it then, but that was the biggest red flag of them all. He started hiding his phone when I walked by. Once I saw a message that said, "It's looking up financially." He said it was from a buddy with a new job. I let it go, but I also started listening. I overheard him on the phone with his mom more than once. Stuff like, "It's comfortable," and "I'm just holding on for now." I pretended I didn't hear, but I started recording. Just small snippets, nothing crazy, just in case. Most were boring. Then we had dinner at his parents' house. It was all out of a magazine. Perfect steaks, wine, candles. Lydia was all smiles and touching my arm. Arthur asking random detailed questions about my dad's business. Even though he'd asked the same things before, they were laying it on thick. I offered to slice the pie, walked to the kitchen, hit record, and left my phone face down on the dining room table. There was a half wall between us, so I could hear everything. Fabian laughed, his fake laugh, the one he uses when he's trying to impress someone. Then his voice dropped low. "She's convenient. Her dad's money keeps me comfortable while I figure things out." I froze, knife in hand. Then, "I'll stick around long enough to squeeze what I can out of her. Then I'll find someone worth showing off." Arthur snorted. Lydia chimed in, "Just don't get her pregnant." Fabian said, "God no. Can you imagine being tied to her family forever? Her dad's an arrogant old goat. If it weren't for the money, I wouldn't even say hello to him." I stood there, slicing pie like I wasn't shattering inside. Then I walked back in, smiling, served the pie, asked about Lydia's roses, laughed at Arthur's lame jokes. I smiled through every single second. We got home. Fabian acted like nothing happened. Flopped on the couch, grabbed the remote. I didn't say a word. Not that night. Not the next day. I watched. Every move. Every fake compliment. Every time he suggested we visit my parents when he wanted to restock groceries. Every time he mentioned money when my dad was nearby. A week passed. I barely slept. Replayed the recording until I could quote it in my sleep. She's convenient, so I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo, and hit play. Click the full story to see what happened next.